Welcome to another episode of Dodgers Dugout Live, the #1 Dodgers show and podcast on YouTube. If you haven't yet, be sure to do us a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain, credentialed member of Dodgers Media. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And today we got a special guest. We are joined by MLB.com St. Louis Cardinals reporter, Mr. John Denton. You can follow him on X and you can read all of his work. John, thank you so much for joining us here on Dodgers Dugout Live, my man.
Thanks for having me. I guess if you have a Cardinals writer on here, I'm guessing we're going to be talking a little bit of Nolan Arenado.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
Welcome to Dodger Stadium.
This is the golden age of Dodger baseball. The Dodgers are building a dynasty.
You got it, Warrior Parade. We got it, Parade. The Dodgers punch back and head to the championship series. Ohtani starts the 50-50 club. Monkey magic. Freeman hits the ball right field. She is gone. Start the party, Los Angeles. Your Dodgers have won the World Series.
Think blue, bleed blue, and I'm out. You guessed it. Let's dive right into it because I heard you on ESPN Radio in St. Louis today, and you were talking about Nolan Arenado and the trade that he didn't greenlight him to Houston. So first, let's start there. Why didn't he accept that trade? Is there more to it that people don't know about? Should he be an Astro today?
Well, I think Nolan, the way Nolan's thinking is, if that's my number third or fourth choice, why would I jump at that now when he could hold out for the Dodgers? Like we've all known, I apologize for my voice, by the way. We've all known forever that Nolan, has dreamed of playing a Dodger, wants to be back in Southern California. He's a surfer dude at heart. Orange County is his home. It's the minute the season's over, he heads back to Orange County. So I think his thinking is, why would I choose the Astros, who just got rid of Kyle Tucker, who might be ready to cut ties with Bregman, who don't have the best name in all of baseball as far as taking care of players? Why would he jump at them before it even turns January when the Dodgers may come calling? And I have heard rumors around St. Louis that even though the Dodgers are saying that they're going to have Max Muncy and they may not be interested, they're still very interested in Nolan Arenado.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest takeaway for me is it's no secret around here, right? He's from Southern California, went to El Toro High School. He's an El Toro Charger. He grew up a Dodgers fan. We've heard rumblings for years, but what stood out to me was you saying that, yeah, maybe this is some gamesmanship on the Dodgers side, saying that Max Muncy is our starting third base, saying that Gavin Lux is our guy, just committing to the guys on their roster. But based on what you're hearing, the Dodgers do have interest in potentially trading for Nolan Arenado.
Yeah, all that's true until it's not true, right? I mean, the Dodgers are playing a game here. You don't want to come out and say, hey, we want him. Then that means the Cardinals are going to make you pay all of the money left on his contract. Nolan's still owed $74 million over the next 3 years. If the Dodgers, kind of act like they're not so fired up about this, maybe the Cardinals will take on more of that money. Like we all know, the Cardinals know they're going to have to pay some of this money. They were willing to kick in $15 million to the Astros to get the deal done. Maybe if the Dodgers drag their feet a little bit, maybe the Cardinals will be willing to kick in $20 million, $25 million, something like that. So, it's all a game. This time of year, everything you read, take it with a grain of salt. Don't believe it, unless it's coming from an MLB.com writer.
Exactly, right? Yeah. I always say, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do, right? And they say a lot of things and then transactions happen. Then you get breaking news from Jeff Passan, people like yourself. And then all of a sudden things happen. Now, as far as the contract that you were talking about, because that really kind of blew my mind a little bit. When you look at the fact that the Rockies still owe 10 of that $74 million, when you look at the Cardinals committing to $15 million of what was left, then you're looking at a Nolan Arenado for just over $16 million per year for the last 3 years of his contract. I mean, at that price, for someone that is a 10-time Gold Glove Award winner, that really was an MVP caliber player as late as just a couple of seasons ago, you would have to believe that there's a lot of teams that'd be interested at that price.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why you saw Houston interested. Bergman still thinks he's going to get $200 million, and he's had it in his head all the way back to spring training, he threw out the word, the number 300 million. It's probably more like 200 million, 175 now. So I'm guessing the Astros said, hey, we can get Nolan Arenado, who's 3 years younger, 3 years older, but we won't have to pay as much money. The Yankees are looking at it. The Mets are looking at it. If they lose Pete Alonso, Nolan could be a candidate to go to the Mets or go to the Yankees. So once the Bregman chip falls, once that domino falls, I think you're really going to see the want and the action for Arenado heat up.
And do you 100% expect him to be dealt this offseason?
Yeah, I don't see any way he could come back. The Cardinals came out and vocally said it's our intention to trade him. It's kind of hard to pull a player back in that situation, and they all know Nolan's 33. He hasn't won many playoff games. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He wants that World Series ring, and they kind of respect the fact that, hey, he wants to go somewhere where he can win. And anybody who watches Nolan Arenado play, as hard as he plays, as much as he cares, you want to see that guy win because he's about all the right things. I mean, you'll never hear me say a bad thing about Nolan Arenado. He cares more than any baseball player I've ever been around. He takes losses really hard. He obsesses over his batting stance. He's told me he gets in his batting stance on the elevator with his wife.
That's awesome.
She'll reach over and slap him and say, stop, let it go. The game's over. So, I think a lot of people can understand Nolan Arenado wants to go to a place where he can win, and we're better to go than the Dodgers.
Now, as far as from the Cardinals end, we know the Dodgers and the Cardinals, really the two flagship teams in the National League. Not a lot of deals between these two. You had Pedro Guerrero back in the 80s. I mean, not tons of deals between these two. A lot of shaking hands with the enemy, right? Doesn't really happen. But from the Cardinals' point of view, what are they looking for in return for a Nolan Arenado? Is it a just top-level prospect? Is it big league ready talent? I mean, if you're the Dodgers, if he's going to play third base, pretty much you would have to potentially trade a Gavin Lux to put Max Muncy at second base, or would you include him into a deal with another team, maybe an AL team or something like that? But what are you hearing as far as what the Cardinals are looking for in return?
Well, they want this season. They want to be competitive. They're kind of resetting the books. They still want to be competitive. They're still one of those franchises that wants a winning record. They've had a winning record of 16 in the last 17 years. It's been weird these last couple of years for them to not be in contention. It's weird to hear them say that they're resetting, rebuilding for a year because they've never been that kind of franchise. They would, if they did this deal, they would love to have a Max Muncy back. They are looking to reduce payroll, and they're looking to, reload their farm system. So I would say it would be a combination of maybe a Muncy and a prospect. The Cardinals played in LA the first series of the year. Bobby Miller was throwing absolute BBs that series. I was shocked that he had the season that he did, but they might be looking to take on a reclamation project kind of like that.
Yeah, that was Bobby Miller's best game of the season, and he really struggled after that, dealt with some injuries, but did show some flashes, and yeah, that upside potential is certainly still there with Bobby Miller, and they do have some pitching depth, especially after the moves they made this offseason, and they're hoping to get Roki Sasaki. But one thing I read from you is a piece you did about Nolan Arenado that talked about his slug and how that slug went down last season. I think that's kind of really the big question about the player. As you point out, he's still elite with the glove. Every metric, I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer, and one of the big reasons why is what he does with the glove. I mean, you can make a case he's one of the best, if not the best, defensive third baseman in history, but it's the bat. You saw last season he had 16 home runs, and he's really been on a downward trajectory. He had 34 in 2021, 30 in 2022, 26 in 2023. What do you make of the drop in slug, and what has he told you about trying to get back to being the guy he was at the plate?
We've always known that when Nolan Arenado was right, he was jumping fastballs. He was dead pull hitter. 90% of his home runs, you could almost put a bucket out in left field and they would land in that bucket. This past year, I think I saw him hit more balls to right field than he did in the rest of his career combined. He really kind of became a more of a punch hitter, singles hitter. He said at the time, I'm just doing the best with what I have. He was having some back problems. He had an elbow issue. He got hit in the hand in Miami during the season. So he had a lot of things going on with his arms. But it really hurt him as a hitter. And we've seen those numbers go down. Now, if you follow Nolan on Instagram, he's doing every workout imaginable. One day he's doing MMA workouts. One day he's doing yoga. One day he's lifting weights. He says he feels better than ever. He told his agent Joel Wolf that he feels like he's 25 again. He's trying to get that bouncy, quick, reflex again, that quick twitch. Because the Nolan Arenado who hit 30 home runs for 7 straight seasons was a guy who would jump fastballs and pull them down the line and that sort of thing. And he just didn't do that last year. Yes, he's turned 33 and he had some issues with his body. When I covered the NBA for years, we always said a knee only has so many jumps in it. Sometimes you wonder, does a baseball body only have so many diving stops in it? Nolan has really worn his body out, but he's doing what he can now to try to get some of that quickness and some of that pop back in his bat.
Yeah, and how much of it is you're kind of adjusting to being 33 and 34, and you can't just be in the cage with unlimited swings like you were early in your career?
Yeah. Nolan has had to figure that out kind of the hard way, that he can't take 200 swings before the game, that his back won't hold up, that he kind of loses his quickness and his quick twitch stuff when he does that. He's a guy who you'd watch him on a backfield in February and you thought it was October. Like he's taking every ground ball and making all these throws. He's a guy who has one temperature, and it's earnest blast, whether it's February or October, the same way. And he's admitted he's had to dial it back a little bit and learn how to save his bullets, save his energy, and not burn himself out before the game, or not burn himself out in game 62 when you have 162 to play.
Yeah, and you mentioned Instagram. It was a couple weeks ago he posted a picture and had a song that was titled Dodger Blue by Kendrick Lamar. A lot of Dodgers fans were running with that. And you also mentioned that he's someone that has only played in 8 postseason games. How important do you think is winning and just competing for a title at this stage of his career? And if that's the case, we know the Dodgers would be a great fit for that.
Yeah, it absolutely burns him up. He takes it personally. It kills him inside. Like, he wants to be that leader guy. He's a guy who wants the pressure on his shoulders. He wants to be the guy leading the team. And like I told you, he cares more than any baseball player I've ever been around. Like, there are times when you go in the clubhouse after a random Thursday game in June, and he's almost in tears because it bothers him so much when his teams aren't successful. So, I think he would thrive in a culture like the Dodgers where they're expected to win, because he expects himself to win every night.
Yeah, and I was talking to his agent, Joel Wolf, at the winter meetings, and one thing that he told me was that he wants to go to an organization where they're full throttle, where they're committed to winning not just this year, but in the foreseeable future. So you got that box definitely checked if you're the Dodgers. You have the connection to Southern California, but just kind of your gut instinct. You mentioned he needs to hear the Dodgers tell him no. How would that process look like from a player to a organization to an agent standpoint? Is it something where Joel Wolf kind of communicates with the Dodgers? Are you interested to put a package together? I mean, what do you think would be the next step to acquiring Arenado if you are the Dodgers?
Yeah, agents like Joel Wolf with Wasserman they're always probing and finding out who's interested, who's not. They're going to give the Dodgers every chance. Like, I truly expect this thing could drag into January, because, like I said earlier today, like, until the Dodgers tell him no, absolutely not, he's going to hold open that hope, I really think, because that's the dream. 1, he loves it there. 2, him and Tommy Edman are great friends. Tommy's told him nothing but great things about playing for the Dodgers. And 3, he would absolutely thrive in that competitive environment. So, yes, while the Yankees may want him and the Astros may want him, and I know Philadelphia really wants him too if they're ready to cut ties with Alex Bohm. But until the Dodgers tell him no, it's not happening, he's going to keep holding out that hope. He's not going to commit to the Astros until he has to commit to the Astros.
Yeah, and that's still something that could be possible. And Dodgers fans were just loving the fact, based on that history, I had Dodger fans saying we need a Nolan Arenado statue just for rejecting the Astros, right? And he could still potentially end up there, as you mentioned. That I do want to say, though, John, I mean, we know you're a fantastic reporter. You're great at what you do, but kind of take off the reporter hat for a second and put on the GM hat for a second. If you are the Dodgers, based on being around Nolan Arenado, see him up close and personal, is that a trade you would make if you are LA? And do you think that would improve their roster?
I think he has a big bounce back season in him. I talked to Nolan after game 161. He was already chomping at the bit to get started. Guys like him, like I told you, like he burns at one temperature all the time. He cares more than anybody. Guys like that don't go away easy. Like Nolan's got another 25 home run season in him. He's got another Gold Glove in him. 23, he hurt his arm in the World Baseball Classic, but this past season he was back to Gold Glove quality. Nolan's going to win another Gold Glove before he's done. And like I said, I think he'll hit 25 home runs this next season. And you put him in that Dodger environment, maybe the Padre environment. Mike Schultz, a guy that he played for in St. Louis, and they loved each other. You put him in that sort of environment back in Southern California, and I really think Nolan has another couple of seasons of really high-level baseball in him.
He'd be absolutely thrilled. I mean, it's kind of like what we saw with another former Cardinal in Jack Flaherty. Of course, he goes to Detroit, and then he goes to L.A., but he put on that Dodgers uniform, and all of a sudden we saw people posting baby pictures of him in Dodgers gear and then how excited he was. And you almost feel like that would be the same thing with Nolan Arenado. And I love the fact that you point out how intense he is. And this is someone who just him and Ichiro are the only two players to win Gold Gloves for their first 10 years of their career. So he wants to get back on track as a career. You know that he wants to make it the Hall of Fame. He wants to compete for a championship. So I do think if you are the Dodgers, you're getting a player that is going to be as locked in and engaged. It's something that not some Dodger fans think, okay, maybe because of the decline, they don't want to see him on their team, but the Cardinals are willing to pay some money. The Rockies are going to be accounting for some of that money. I just think, yeah, man, this is just such a great player that you have to consider. Now, you're an NBA guy, right? Basketball guy. We got a question. Our question of the day here for our designated Twitter segment is, how do you explain Shohei Ohtani in NBA terms? Who's Shohei Ohtani's NBA comp? Is it someone that's the combination of Bill Russell's defense and Michael Jordan's scoring? I mean, how do you kind of make sense of Shohei Ohtani if you're going to compare to an NBA player?
I mean, this is going to sound a little bit weird, but he's Shaquille O'Neal. He's one of one.
There you go.
If you've ever stood next to Shaquille O'Neal, like I have a size 15 shoe.
Yeah.
Shaquille wears a 22 Triple E. My shoe would fit inside of his. Like his shoulders are this big. Like I couldn't imagine. I used to always ask him questions about playing with the Magic, and he would call me Big Orlando. That was my nickname.
That's awesome.
I'm like, Shaquille O'Neal is calling me big. I'm 6'5". He's 7'2", and I contend that Shaquille O'Neal is one of the greatest athletes of all time because of how big he was, how quick he was. But Shohei, like Shaq, Shohei's one of one. Like he pitches better than anybody else. He hits better than anybody else. He stole 50-something bases this past season. You know, they don't make them like that anymore. They don't make them like Shaquille O'Neal anymore. So I know that's kind of a random comparison, but
that's perfect
because they're both so unique.
The Big Diesel, he called himself the MDE, the most dominant ever. Of course, Shaq is a legend in these parts too, John. So last question I have for you, though, and you can tap out on this one, but next year, opening day, Nolan Arenado is playing for what team?
I think he's going to be a Dodger. I think eventually it will happen. Like I said, it may not happen until January 15th or January 30th, but I really think it's going to happen because that's at the top of Nolan's list. That's who he wants. He's made it clear that if you don't give me what I want, I'll just decline it. And there's even been talk that if he doesn't get what he wants, which is probably the Dodgers and then 3 spots down the Yankees, if it's not one of those two or the Phillies, I'm guessing he stays in St. Louis. But we all know that the Dodgers are head and shoulders ahead of everybody else. It would not shock me one bit if he started in third base on opening day at Chavez Ravine next April.
All right, that gets Dodgers fans very excited. Yeah, I mean, look, you look at Nolan Arenado, you look at the player he is. He makes a lot of sense for this team. There's no doubt about it. Well, John, we thank you so much joining us here on short notice here on Dodgers Dugout Live, the #1 Dodgers podcast and show on YouTube. By the way, if you're not, guys, follow Mr. John Denton. Read all of his work. This guy knows ball with the best of them. We hope you have a great holiday season. Thank you so much. Not just talking baseball, but the NBA and Shaq and Shohei Ohtani. John, you are the man. We appreciate you, and have a great holiday season.
Appreciate it. I've got family all over Southern California, so they've been laughing that I'm on a Dodger show. So, I hope they get to listen in too. But thanks for having me.
Anytime, and we'll talk to you soon. And thank you so much for everything. There he goes, Mr. John Denton of MLB.com. And yeah, he dropped some great insight, great expertise on all things Nolan Arenado. And that's not just some random reporter. That's MLB.com's John Denton, who just outright predicted that Nolan Arenado will ultimately be traded to the Dodgers. That's very interesting. Brings me to my Dodgers Nation poll question of the show. I asked you guys earlier today over on X if you thought the Dodgers should trade for Nolan Arenado. And it's changed a lot throughout the day, but right now, 48% of you say yes, and 52% of you say no. So that's closer than it was a couple of weeks ago. And I think it's very interesting because it's tough to, like I said, I mean, it'd be one thing if this was just some random guy on the radio in St. Louis, kind of a shock jock trying to gain listeners. But this is someone who's been very respected in this business for a very long time, and he's got a ton of credibility. And he's not saying it's going to happen, but that was his prediction. I think it's pretty much safe to say, though, when it comes to Nolan Arenado, that he wants to be a Dodger very, very bad. He dreams of wearing Dodger blue and competing for a title with this organization. And I think the thing that really struck me in this last couple of days is, one, I mean, can you imagine what a Dodger hero he would be, that not only does he end up in LA, a place where a lot of people wanted to see him for a long, long time? Jim Bowden said he was going to be a Dodger like 2 years ago before Christmas. That never happened. Maybe he was a couple Christmases off. Who knows? But the fact that, like I said, the Rockies paying $10 million to that $74 million contract. What's left? So what's left is 3 years, $74 million. Rockies paying $10 million. Cardinals, for that deal with the Astros, we're at about $15 million. I mean, there's some debate. Jeff Passan thinks that the Astros are willing to pay more, but the truth is the Cardinals are willing to include money in the deal. So if the Dodgers acquired Nolan Arenado at the exact same price under the same conditions, you'd be talking about a 10-time Gold Glove Award winner that still is elite. Say what you want about his offense, which was still above average. Say what you want about his offense. The glove, which some people thought was declining last season because he was playing through a back injury and the metrics weren't great, totally got back on track. Last season, he was in the 95th percentile in outs above average. He had 9 outs above average last season. So he is elite defensively. No doubt about that. The question is, what do you do with the bat? Last year, he was just right around league average. A 102 weighted runs created plus, so 2% above league average, had 16 home runs in 152 games. Year before that, 106 weighted runs created plus, hit 26 home runs. But the year before that, in 2022, when he was 31, he had a fantastic season. Really had the best season of his professional career at the plate. Had a 149 weighted runs created plus, hit 293, hit 30 home runs. Was great defensively. So the big question the Dodgers have has to be, can you get 2021, 2022 version of Nolan Arenado? And if that's the case, man, I mean, this is somewhat like I said, what we don't know, we don't have the magic 8 ball, right? We can't see inside that crystal ball and see what does Nolan Arenado look like in a Dodger uniform. I mean, being 100% re-energized, be 100% re-energized and excited about going to the ballpark every day. He turns 34 in April. He did grow up a Dodgers fan, went to El Toro High School in Lake Forest. He played shortstop for the Chargers. Now, the Dodgers have publicly, through their general manager, Brandon Gomes, they've made it very clear that Max Muncy will be the team's third baseman heading into next season. What John Denton is saying, MLB.com's St. Louis Cardinals beat reporter, is that the Dodgers are doing that because of some gamesmanship. Because if you're the Cardinals and you're seeing the team that Nolan Arenado wants to go to, which he has a full no trade clause and can really control the terms of his next team, well, they're just saying to themselves, look, Muncy's our third baseman. We don't need Nolan Arenado. And the question is, what do you do with Max Muncy? Max Muncy has played some outfield. It's been a long time 2018, he played left field for the Dodgers for like 3 games, has played right field at some point during his career, but is rare. It's unlikely that Max Muncy is going to get thrown out into the outfield. Other option would be for you to trade Gavin Lux and have Max Muncy play second base. Now, Max Muncy technically is a all-star second baseman, and he has said that second base is his favorite position to play. He likes the reads off the bat. But I think that's a big question. I mean, if you're the Dodgers and you're committed to Gavin Lux, who there was some rumors that they were considering including him in a deal for Devin Williams, is that the play for the Dodgers to include Gavin Lux in a deal for a pitcher? Because that's the only way you can open up that spot, is to trade Gavin Lux for a pitcher, and then you can move Max Muncy to second. You can have Nolan Arenado at third. You can have Mookie Betts at shortstop. So that would really be the option there. But man, this is some interesting stuff. But by the way, get wrecked. Get wrecked. Houston Astros did not want to go to Houston. Hey, man, gotta love that. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. Like I said, kind of going back to Nolan Arenado, the player. There's no doubt about it. He needs to find something at the plate to kind of make it make sense. At 16, I mean, he'd be getting less than Michael Conforto is getting this year. So another thing to consider too is with Mookie Betts going to shortstop, one thing to do to strengthen the left side of your infield is to have an elite third baseman. So that's something that could be a part of the calculus, a part of the thought process. I can't really imagine this team moving off of Max Muncy, because Max Muncy is in a lot of ways one of the leaders of this team. I mean, it was him and Mookie Betts that went to the organization to talk about doing things differently heading into this postseason. And Max Muncy is a better offensive player at this stage of his career based on what we saw last season. The thing about Max Muncy is he's missed a lot of time last couple of seasons. He has dealt with injuries. I mean, the chiropractor got his season back on track, but Max Muncy played in just 73 games in 2024, did have a 135 weighted runs created plus, hit 15 home runs. Also, he's on a really nice contract. The contract that he's on is a favorable deal. He's owed $12 million for the upcoming season and has a $10 million club option for 2026. And you know what else he doesn't have? He does not have a no trade clause. So if the Cardinals wanted to contend this year and save money, Max Muncy would be potentially an option in that standpoint. Like I said, if you look at a side-by-side comparison last season, Muncy hit 232, Arenado hit 272. But they're very, very, very different players. But that is the path to opening up a spot for Nolan Arenado at the hot corner, at third base. Trade Max Muncy or move Max Muncy to another position. Trade Gavin Lux to place Max Muncy at second, or move him into the outfield. Mike Petriello of MLB.com, he wrote a piece where he was suggesting to have Max Muncy kind of move around and give guys time off at certain positions and be more of a utility man. I don't really see it that way as far as how the Dodgers would utilize him. But let me know down below in the comment section. That John Denton brought it, man. He predicts that Arenado is going to be a Dodger. So who knows if that'll happen, but that is what he said. Do you believe him? Do you agree with him? Do you think that'll be the case? For me, it's like I always say, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And the Dodgers, I will tell you that the Dodgers did want to trade for him at the 2023 deadline. That's something that they did. And what I always say is that they were interested in you once, they'll be interested in you again. But yeah, I'm going to read your comments, guys. Welcome to Dodgers Dugout Live, the #1 Dodgers podcast and show on YouTube. We got $200. $200. This is going right towards the Roki Sasaki International Bonus Pool Fund. Hey, D-Mac, what's going on? What's going to happen first? The Dodgers signed Teoscar Hernandez or Giancarlo Stanton finishes rounding third base. You're the best, brother. Fire take. Fire take. comment of the show for Whack'em Sticks. To answer your question, it has to be Teoscar Hernandez getting signed because Giancarlo Stanton, it takes at least 30 business days for him to get to home place. And I don't think it's going to happen. He's running with the piano on his back. But thank you so much, Whack'em Sticks, and a happy holidays. We got a Albert Garcia. Arenado would be an A+ upgrade from Max at third. There's pretty much no debating that. That's pretty much objectively true at this point. Max Muncy has improved defensively, and he was hovering around league average with the glove, where you give him his pop on offense, you combine that with that, then he is a positive player, and he does help you a lot. But yeah, I mean, look, Nolan Arenado, like John Dent says, is going to shoot for another Gold Glove for sure. We have Yasser Vavida Loquez says, I feel Nolan will go all out to win a World Series. Jason Lynn, I'll take Nolan over Ryan Helsley. Oh, okay, this is from Jason Lynn, and that's something that we were talking about as well, is I'll take Nolan only if Ryan Helsley is also included. So by all indications right now, they don't intend on moving him necessarily. But like I said, I mean, what are those moves going to entail? Does he want to consider going all in and including another piece? And if the Dodgers truly were interested in moving Gavin Lux for a pitcher, is that a part of the move as well? Yeah, BC Arenado's salary would put them over the tax threshold if they re-signed everyone but Buehler, which I think they do. I mean, they're already well over. I think they're at top of my head, they're at 328. So they're already over the Cohen threshold at 301. So you're going to be paying 110% on that anyway. And look, it ain't my money. It ain't your money. And they're making lots and lots of money. That's not what they're worrying about. The Dodgers, what they're looking at doing is putting together the best roster they can do under the parameters of, okay, you can only have so many spots filled. So, yeah, I wouldn't totally worry about that. Of course, I mean, if there was no money, I mean, they would get Burns and everyone. But still, I mean, for guys like an Arenado, when it comes to adding salary, and a Teoscar, who they're still in talks with bringing back, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that, especially, and they're also considering Tanner Scott as well. So you have to factor that in too. But don't worry about the finances at this point. I don't think that any of the guys that they're interested in on a serious level, that they're worrying about the finances. They're still going to try to include deferrals. They're going to try to get the best deal they can, but they're not going against guys right now that they're priced out of, right? If it were a Corbin Burns, hypothetically, right, that is a player who would be priced out probably where they're at, certainly at the moment. But so the guys they're interested, though, that's not the case. Jake Franco, Freddie at first, Muncy at second, Mookie at shortstop, and Arenado at third. Hernandez Bros in the outfield. Yeah, that's another one, too. I mean, with Chris Taylor entering the final year of his $60 million contract, do you really need Kike and CT3? Kike Hernandez can play all around the infield, can play all around the outfield as well. And then you have Tommy Edman, who brings that positional versatility, too. Martin Troop, let's go get Nolan, especially if we're putting Mookie at shortstop. Let's go Dodgers. Liam, the Arenado trade could include Taylor and Lux. Bring up rushing for a lefty and for a lefty bat and focus on re-signing Teo. We don't have to go crazy. Interesting take. Then rushing is a beast. Rushing is, I've never been as confident of a minor leaguer with the stick to come up and make that transition as I've had with Dalton Rushing. I believe in the bat, and when he gets his opportunity, I think he's going to take it and run with it. Ronald Pasquale, yes, Nolan just needs to play on a contender team. Look, change of scenery, it's not just change of scenery. It's literally like change of scenery to your dream team, to the team that you've always dreamt of playing for. So, yeah, I mean, think about it. He already wants to get back to being an elite player, but for a guy that's only playing 8 postseason games, we saw Shohei Ohtani, how he performed trying to get to the postseason and having that World Series title. Arenado that same fire would burn. It's like pouring gasoline to the fire. Stephen A., feel like the Dodgers waiting on a trade to go through before they sign Teo. nothing's really changed with the Dodgers and Teo, at least as of yesterday. So I think that we'll see. I mean, how close we get to the holidays, I think that's going to be a determining factor. Do we see deals close to Christmas? Do we see deals after Christmas? There was a report today that we won't see the signing of Corbin Burns till after Christmas. So just depends on how they want to go about their business. Luis Bautista, fans that don't want Nolan don't watch ball. Dopey J. And look, here's the thing. I think most Dodgers fans, a lot of the Dodgers pundits out there are not that into the idea of Nolan Arenado because of how good he was years ago. Things like, if this was 7 years ago, yes, but it's not 7 years ago. But just because a player was elite 7 years ago doesn't mean a good version of that player on an affordable contract where their former team is paying some of the money doesn't mean it can't be additive to your roster. Dopey J, Keithman, Arenado at third, and Muncy at second would be awesome. I'm Blue 84. I'm Blue. Not mad if the Dodgers get Arenado and don't re-sign Teo. Wow, that is a first. A don't re-sign Teo. We have not seen one of those in weeks. We got Ben Creighton. Arenado's best days are behind him. Let's move on and do something meaningful. We don't need or want him. So I think that's why I love this Arenado talk. It's very polarizing. A lot of differing opinions. Some people think he's washed. Some people think that he would benefit from a change of scenery. And yes, the Cardinals are a team that, look, they want to run a lower payroll in 2025. They don't need to move Nolan Arenado, but they want to. They're still about $35 million lower than they were in 2024 as far as their overall payroll. But if you move Arenado, it's not necessarily a dump of salary, but it just gives them more flexibility to go out there and kind of enter a different phase of where they're going as a franchise. Ben Crane, Arenado's best days are behind him. Cole, as we saw in the World Series, defense is extremely important. Upgrading a premium position player is always a good thing. Empire Jeff TV. What's up, Empire Jeff TV? Adding a motivated Arenado to this lineup would put him in a time machine, take him back to his productive days for sure. Yeah, they just put him in that Dodgers DeLorean and go back in time, and you'll see a better version of Nolan Arenado. We got Bilal K. Muncy over Arenado, but if the Yankees add Bregman or Arenado to Bellinger, Devin Williams, Max Fried, don't lie to Dodgers fans and tell us we're still better than them. I still think the Dodgers have superior top-end talent. Devin Williams has had injury issues, hasn't pitched great in the postseason. Cody Bellinger is a shell of his former self. He's not the same player as he once was. I will tell you that even if they get him, the Dodgers are still a better team than the New York Yankees. Okay, so I agree to disagree with that one. DT Wong, why pay for Arenado's contract? Instead, save the money for Kyle Tucker next year. He's going to get a bag. MJR28, Nolan Arenado arguably has been the best third baseman, but bringing him in the mix now when the clubhouse has meshed this well is not necessary. We need that right-handed bat in Teoscar. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I remember Jerry Harrison telling us a couple weeks ago that sometimes when you're building a dynasty and you're going through multiple championship runs, that adding different pieces every single year to certain spots can keep things fresh, can keep things moving. And the truth is that one version of a team is always going to change, right? There are always going to be little differences. And if you want to build team chemistry, I always say winning builds chemistry. So I think the chemistry factor is something that changes when you're losing. When you're losing, it's the camera pointing to your dugout, no one's dancing, and no one's celebrating, you're not scoring runs. It looks like you have bad chemistry. If you're winning, then yeah, you have the chemistry. But I will tell you, the leader of this team is Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is the guy that I truly believe runs the show. And I think that Shohei Ohtani, his presence, and Freddie Freeman's presence, and he runs the show. I remember talking to a player and I asked him what the leader of the team was. You know what they told me? They said Dave Roberts. So you have a strong manager and a strong culture that if one player leaving ruins your team's clubhouse culture, that means you didn't have great clubhouse culture to begin with. Culture is more than just one player. It's the foundation with your franchise players, your great players. I think it trickles down. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to have Max Muncy on this team, because I definitely would, but I don't think that necessarily would destroy team chemistry. Jeff Amito, Arenado doesn't need to play like he did 5 years ago, just needs to be durable and just hit. There's no pressure for him to be the man on this team. That's a great point, Jeff. And here's the thing, too. You want him to be a 30 home run guy, but he also is a guy that does hit for average throughout his career. And when you already have the sluggers that the Dodgers do have, you got the boppers in Shohei. You got the boppers in Freddie and Mookie Betts, and hopefully they bring back Teoscar Hernandez and Will Smith. Having that club in your bag in the lineup can diversify a little bit too. Alfonso Lucio, Arenado, and LA Parade would be fire. Cole, D-Mac, St. Louis probably even more motivated now that Arenado vetoed that Astros trade. It's a good point. I mean, who knows? I mean, at this point, they're kind of not turning back, right? It's a point of no return. So you want to probably get a deal done as soon as possible. And if that means including more money, taking on a contract that you might not want to take, taking back a player you might not want to take, maybe you go that route. But yeah, I certainly do think that now it's not speculation. It's not a rumor. We know now 100% the Astros thought they had him. There was a story in The Athletic by Katie Wu that said that Arenado did not want to rush into a decision and wanted to wait until the market for him had completely been established. So there's no doubt about that he wanted to wait, and the Astros, they thought they had him. One league source said the deal was on the 1 yard line over the weekend, and that the Astros were even agreeing to pay the majority of Arenado's contract. The Astros wanted him bad. So even if the Cardinals were only wanting to take on $5 million per season, Astros are saying, you know what? We're losing Alex Bregman. We still think that Arenado can be successful for us. So that's certainly something that's very, very interesting. So a couple more here. We got CT3 and Bobby Miller for Nolan, and they can eat half of the contract. He did bring up Bobby Miller. I thought that was pretty interesting. And Bobby Miller did have his best start of the season in the Dodgers' first home series of the year. George Robles, if Dodgers get Arenado, their probability of a World Series title would be at 100%. I don't know about that, but I like your thought there. We got the Juice Narrows. Cards just looking to unload his contract on someone. LOL. I think it's a combination of factors. Like I said, they'd be fine with having him back in St. Louis, but they're an organization that is kind of going about this, hey, what must be done eventually should be done immediately. And I think that is the process they're going through. And look, you don't want to have a disgruntled star, especially one that has a full no trade clause that he's fully going to take advantage of. And that is really what makes this extra interesting, is that if Nolan Arenado said, you know what, I only want to get traded to the Dodgers, that's it. The Dodgers could say, okay, well, fine, I guess we'll do it. If you take X amount of money, take back this player. So both sides are in a really good position to get to where they want to go, and the Dodgers can acquire him under the best scenario possible. Because look, he's not free. He's not going to be a free player, but you could certainly get a lot of value for him. Let's be honest. If he was coming off the 2022 season, you'd be on the hook for $74 million, and you would probably have to include some top prospects. Malachi Ferreira, $499. I'm 100% convinced if 2017 didn't go the way it did, Arenado would be an Astro as we speak. I like that take. Maybe he didn't want the trash can banging, right? Hey, maybe he didn't want to cheat to win a championship. Martin Troop, Arenado deserves a chance to play in the World Series. Come on, Dodgers. Let Friedman cook. Daniel Kudry. We need Nolan at third base and dump Muncy. We go from real good to real great. Nolan is needed if we send Muncy, Mookie, Lux. Freeman infield is very mid defensively. Like I said, the left side of your infield, would be, by most defensive metrics, hovering around league average to below league average. And based on what those guys can do offensively, they would still be above average at their position in the net. But yeah, defense is important for sure. Chris Herrera 199. Is it true the Yankees have a meeting with Roki? It is true, but we all know that he's going to be taking meetings with a lot of teams. They actually polled the executives, and the Padres and the Dodgers were still viewed by all the executives that were polled around Major League Baseball to being the favorites to land the Japanese phenom. But Tayo Serrano, if you had a chance to play for your team that you loved growing up, I would show up and pump every day, ready to go. Yeah, I mean, Dodger boy 28. Let's go get Arenado. Armart or 3. Known for CT3 Lux. Get a veteran who's motivated to win a World Series and is a legit hot corner glove with a solid batting average. C313 says Helsley, Arenado for CT3 and Miller. So, biggest takeaway from today's show is feels like Dodgers fans want Arenado more today than they did yesterday. I think that's based on the fact that it's extremely evident that he wants to be a Dodger bad. He wants to be in LA. It's his dream team. And that financially, if he becomes a liability with the stick, sure, it would hurt. But if he gets back to what he was, he can provide value. But that is going to do it, guys. Arenado to LA. Hey, I'm just going to be on board by saying that if it were me, I would try to get Arenado in Dodger blue. That's my take. Because $16.3 million, you're going to get Gold Glove defense. I do think the bat turns around. I think a motivated, re-energized Nolan Arenado that doesn't have to be the man for this team would be big time. Nolan Arenado has always dreamt of being a Dodger. The Dodgers have always appreciated him. They've had in-depth discussions about acquiring him for years. I don't know how you're going to make it happen. I've laid out the options, but I think that this team would be a better team with Nolan Arenado on it. But that's going to do it for this episode of Dodgers Dugout Live. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the #1 Dodgers YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Hit that like button. Remember, nothing brings us together quite like Dodger baseball. And until next time, think blue.